everyone, this is Celine from Blue Calla Patterns. In this video series we're going to be making the Stonecrop organizer satchel. This was a pattern that I designed for my sewing retreat, which was unfortunately cancelled. So this is a pretty long bag to make, and it's not an inexpensive bag to make because of all the hardware that's required and the cost of the materials. So I'm going to highly recommend that you start by reading through the entire pattern first before starting. I also recommend that you watch the entire video series before you get started. And if in terms of sewing, like the sewing level, like the level of difficulty for this pattern, it's not extremely difficult, but it is really long to make. So I might separate this tutorial in multiple videos. I usually try to keep it to around 4 or 5, but I might split it up even more for this bag, just because if you're making the organizer pocket, it's quite a lot of work. So I would consider it an intermediate pattern. It's definitely not beginner friendly, but if you read through the pattern and you watch the entire video series and you want to attempt it, then go ahead. So what I'm going to do before I start going through the supplies list and the cutting, I'm just going to show you, I've made 2 samples of the bag, and one of them has the organizer pocket and one of them does not. So this is actually an option in the pattern. If you're not interested in the organizer pocket, you can just make it with a simple pocket with a flap closure on the front, and it makes it a lot shorter to sew and slightly easier. So I'll start by showing you with the organizer pocket. So I'll just set this version aside. Okay, so what both versions have in common is an exterior zipper pocket on the back. Okay, it's fairly large. It goes almost to the bottom here. It has a main zipper closure, and then this one has the organizer pocket in the front. So it's a turn lock closure, and then you have the 2 zippers. You can pull the zippers down. This is obviously easier to open if you actually are carrying the bag. And then you have your card slots here. There's 8 of them in total, but you could probably fit more than 1 card in there, I'm not sure. And then you have 2 slip pockets and then another small zippered pocket just above the slip pockets. Okay, so that's your organizer pocket. It has a removable crossbody strap and 2 short handles for carrying. Now I have some paper stuffed in here, photographing. And so on the inside it has another zipper pocket. So you have 3 zipper pockets in total if you're making the organizer pocket on the front. And then it also has 2 larger slip pockets on the inside. Now the version that does not have the organizer pocket is identical. The only difference is that this pocket in the front it's not an organizer pocket, it's just a regular slip pocket. Okay, so the rest is all exactly the same. Okay, so I'm gonna get my my notions together and we'll go through those first. Okay, so aside from the fabric that you're going to need and the interfacing, also I just want to mention very quickly, when I give amounts for fabric, your lining fabric, your exterior fabric, your cork or your vinyl, your interfacing, these are all very rough estimates, and I do get questioned a lot about quantities because there's no way for me to write an amount and it's going to work for 100% of people, because I don't know if you're going to try to make this all in fabric or if you're going to use a combination. Maybe you're going to try to make it entirely out of cork or vinyl. Maybe you're using a custom fabric that has a custom width that's a little bit out of the ordinary. I always just recommend to buy extra. There's nothing wrong with having extra because you might make a mistake anyways, or you can use the extra for a different project. So please always buy extra, and you'll have to make some adjustments based on the width of your materials and what type of material you're choosing for the various parts of the bag. Okay, now in terms of notions, so the hardware that you need. So there's quite a bit of hardware for this bag, and I realize that it makes it a little bit more expensive to make, which is why I really highly recommend that you make sure you read through the pattern at least once. I recommend twice, and that you watch through the entire video series before you start, just to make sure that you don't make any mistakes and waste some kind of materials here. Okay, so we're going to start with the hardware. You're going to need 2 1-inch D-rings, and these are for the side connectors at the side of the bag where you're going to clip your adjustable crossbody strap. You're going to need, for the adjustable strap, you're going to need 1 rectangle slide. So this is a 1.5 inch wide rectangle slide, and 2 1.5 inch swivels. You're going to need, for the front pocket flap, you're going to need a turn lock. If you don't have a turn lock and you want to substitute with a magnetic snap, you could do that, and you can just use the same markings for the locations that are on the pattern pieces. You're going to need, for your handles, you're going to need 4 1-inch rectangle rings. And optional are purse feet, so I'm using 4 purse feet, and these are the washers. And I'm going to use a metal zipper end, okay, for the zipper I use for the main closure. Now, you need a lot of zippers for this bag. If you're doing the organizer pocket, you're going to need 2 pre-made 6-inch zippers. I'm using a 4.5 or a number 5 zipper. I often get asked, what does this mean? Well, this is a number 3 dress zipper. The tape is 1 inch wide. I know that the sizing refers to the coil, but for me, for I guess for math, when I'm calculating seam allowance and to what sizes all the various pieces need to be, I'm really only concerned about the width of the zipper tape. That's the important measurement for me. So a number 3 dress zipper is 1 inch wide, okay? And the coil is going to be smaller. But for me, what's important is that it's 1 inch wide. So this little zipper is for the zipper pocket that's inside the organizer pocket on the front of the bag. And I'm using, you're supposed to be using a 6-inch. I don't have a 6-inch, so I'm actually just going to use a 7-inch, and I'll cut it down while I'm doing the assembly. You'll see that later. So if you also don't have a 6-inch, you'll see I'll be using a bigger one and cutting it down. For the organizer pocket, you either use 2 pre-made 6-inch zippers, so the ones that look like this, that you buy with already the zipper stop at the end. Or, if like me, I'm using zipper tape. So when you're using zipper tape, you're always going to use a longer piece. So for the organizer pocket, it's 2 6-inch zippers, pre-made zippers, or 8 inches of zipper tape. Okay, so these are going to be my organizer pocket zippers. For the main closure of the bag, you can use, and this here you don't need to have if you're using zipper tape, it does not need to be bigger. So either a pre-made 14-inch zipper or 14 inches of zipper tape, okay? 14 inches, either way, it will work. 1 9-inch zipper for the interior zipper pocket. Now, I'm using zipper tape. Now, normally for an interior zipper, I would use a dress zipper, but I wanted it to match the rest of my exterior zippers. So I'm actually using 11 inches of zipper tape. So this is a case where it's 9 inches for a pre-made zipper. If you're using zipper tape, I always add 2 inches extra, so I have 11 inches of zipper tape. And then my last zipper, it's either a prepared, so a ready-made 10-inch zipper or 12 inches of zipper tape. And this is for the exterior zipper pocket that's on the back of the bag. Okay, so now I'm going to gather my pattern pieces, and we're going to go through the pattern pieces that you need. Okay, so print out all of the pattern pieces. So if you're not printing out the instructions, just print out the pattern pieces. Make sure that you're printing them out in Adobe Reader at actual size. Now there are 5 pieces that need to be taped together. The rest you can just cut out. The main body stabilizer pattern piece. So you're going to see there's symbols that show which lines need to be taped together. And one little tip that I have is to not cut direct one of the pieces. Don't cut it directly at the line. Leave a little bit of extra paper so that you can overlap a section, and it just makes it sturdier. If you're just butting up the lines and taping them, I find the tape eventually cracks and the pieces they fall apart. So that's just a little tip. So the main body stabilizer piece needs to be taped together. The interior zipper facing piece needs to be taped together. The exterior zipper facing piece needs to be taped together. The gusset piece and the zipper panel piece. Now there are a lot of pattern pieces for this pattern. On pages 3 and 4 of the pattern, there is a cutting chart. Okay, this is a really great tool. Usually what I'll do when I'm going to make a bag is I actually just print out the cutting chart and the pattern pieces, and then I have the instructions on my iPad. And then I use a pencil and I just check off when I've cut pieces, because then when I'm done the bag I can just erase the pencil marks and use the chart again. I've also heard that using one of those fabric pens where the ink eventually disappears also works great. I don't have those, so I just use a regular pencil and erase it. So it's a pretty long cutting chart. There's a lot of pieces to cut. So you're going to notice now there might be some changes. This is a draft copy that I was using during testing, so it might look slightly different in the final version. You're going to see at the top here, I've started with most of the pieces that have a pattern piece. Sometimes if it's a rectangle piece, I've given you the measurements, but I've also in some cases given you a pattern piece regardless. Now the only thing you need to look at carefully is there's a section that's, if you're making a regular exterior front pocket, you're only cutting this one piece. However, if you're making the organizer pocket, there's quite a few additional pieces that you need to cut here. So not all of these pattern pieces will be used if you're not making the organizer pocket. So follow the cutting chart very carefully, just to make sure that you're cutting what you need depending on what version of the bag that you're going to be making. Okay, so I'm going to go through one by one the items on the cutting chart, and I'll show you my cut pieces. So I'm just going to organize them and go through the cutting chart with you. Okay, so I'm trying to organize the pieces so that I make sure that I don't forget anything, but as you can see, this is not an easy task, so hopefully I'm going to go through it and I won't forget anything. So I'm just going to go down the cutting list. I think that will be the easiest thing. So for your main pocket flap, so that's the exterior flap pocket, pocket that has a flap closure. So you can do this of a couple of ways. You can use your vinyl or your cork for your exterior fabric, and then you can use a cotton for the lining, so that's the underside of the flap. Now I like to use the cork for both the exterior and the lining of my flap, because then I don't have to interface very much. But if you're using, like I've said in the cutting chart, if you're going to use a cotton fabric for the lining side, so the underside of your flap, you're going to need to fuse some woven interfacing, and you're also going to want to put a layer of fusible fleece just to give the flap a bit more structure. Okay, so that's your main pocket flap. Just going to set these aside in an organized way so that when I need them afterwards for assembly, they're handy. Okay, so the top band. Now this looks like it's a rectangle, but it is not. There is actually a slight angle, and it's not very obvious when you're looking at the bag, but there is a slight angle to the sides. So when you're cutting this, I think I did make a mark on some of the pieces. Oh, maybe just on, oh yes, here you go. So I wanted to demonstrate what side is the top side. So what's going to be near the opening of the bag. So on the wrong side of my cork pieces, I drew an arrow to show that, you know, this is up. Okay, because otherwise the angle is so subtle that I probably wouldn't really realize it when I'm assembling the bag, and then things don't line up and you're wondering why. So it's better if you can just take the time to put an arrow to show that, you know, there's a slight angle this way and that this is the top edge. It says cut on the fold, but when I'm cutting vinyl or cork, I don't cut on the fold. I actually, you probably can't see my marks, but I'll just place this and I'll do some marks where the center fold line is, and then I flip it over like this, and then I cut out the rest. And one of the benefits of doing this actually is that it's more precise, but also I already have all of my center marks there ready to go. So that's the top band, and here again you can use cork or vinyl for the two exterior top bands, and then you can use fabric for the two lining, which is on the inside of the bag, right beside the zipper panel, so it's on the inside. I made them all in cork again because it means a lot less interfacing. If you're using fabric, you'll see that you're supposed to also add some fusible woven interfacing to the two lining pieces. Okay, put this aside. The bottom band, so there's only two bottom band pieces. Again, I'm using cork so that I don't have to interface anything. If you're using cotton, make sure you add the fusible woven interfacing on the wrong side. And again, when you're cutting, I know it says cut on fold, but I'm doing the flip method, and then I have center marks ready to go. Okay, put that aside. Then I have my interior zipper facing. So what I'm probably going to do, because I want to show all of the pieces that I cut for the lining pieces, I want to show those all together. And then I want to show the exterior pieces together. So these aren't listed in that order. So what I'll do is I'm going to finish by showing you the exterior pieces first. So I'm going to jump around actually a little bit here, and I'm going to show you. I'll keep the organizer pocket for last, so I'll just set that aside for now. The back of the bag, this is what you need for the back of the bag. So you're going to need one exterior zipper facing. And you can cut this one by measurement, but you will definitely still need the pattern piece because you're going to draw this shape on the wrong side a little bit later on. And this piece needs fusible woven interfacing on the wrong side. Then I have the two exterior zipper pocket lining pieces. Okay, these are cut to measurement, and the measurements are in the cutting chart, and they should also have fusible woven interfacing on the wrong side. And then the main piece, which is I've called the exterior zipper pocket panel. Let me just quickly grab a bag here to show you what we're cutting out right now. This is the pieces that you see here. So here's your top band, here's your bottom band. This is the this piece here, the exterior zipper pocket panel. That's this piece here. And that piece you need to have fusible woven interfacing. And then there's the two zipper pocket lining pieces I just showed you, 1 and 2. And then the facing piece you can't see because it's inside. And I just use it to, you'll see there's no exposed zipper tape. It just gives a nicer, more professional finish. Okay, so that's the pieces that we just looked at just now. Okay, I'm going to set these aside, but I'm going to keep them together. I'm going to keep tripping on my ironing mat here, so I'll move that aside. Okay, next, gusset, and that's on this first page, on page 3 of the cutting chart. So with the gusset, you're actually going to cut a few pieces with this, okay? You're going to cut 2 exterior pieces. So again, I'm using cork, so I don't have to use any interfacing. I just cut my cork pieces. If you're using fabric, you're going to need to cut fusible woven interfacing and fuse it to the wrong side. Then I have 2 lining fabric, and those do have the fusible woven interfacing on the wrong side. Okay, so I'm going to just keep these together and set them aside. Now for the front of the bag. So here we're going to tackle the organizer or the front pocket and the other pieces that you need for the front. So other than the pocket pieces, you really just need to cut this front side panel piece. Now again, there's a slight angle here, and then I have put a little note on the pattern piece that says attach this side to the front pocket. So you're cutting a set of mirror image pieces. So what I usually do is I either have them wrong sides together or right sides together, the fabric and the interfacing, and then I just cut both pieces out at the same time. That way there you don't have to remember about flipping the pattern piece when you're cutting. It's also faster. So I have one set mirror image of my exterior fabric, and then I have fused the interfacing to the wrong side. So I'm going to keep those together. And if it's helpful and you don't want to keep the pattern piece with them, you can actually write a little note along the straight edge just to remind yourself that you're going to be attaching those to that front pocket. Okay, so if you're not making the organizer pocket and you're just making the front pocket as a slip pocket, it's very, very simple. You're just cutting your flat pieces. You're going to cut your organizer back panel. That's this pattern piece right here. The measurements, if you want to cut to measurements, they're on the pattern piece and in the cutting chart. You're just going to cut the one piece. So I'm using the cute little bird fabric here, the rainbow fabric. So that's your organizer back panel. And then if you're making the regular front pocket, actually I think this is it here. Yes, you're using this same piece. So I don't have these pieces cut because I'm making the organizer pocket for this video. But if you're making the slip pocket, so all you're going to do is you're going to fold at this dashed line. It's called the pocket. I just called it the pocket fold line. And then you'll see on the pattern piece, you follow these instructions and you're going to cut an exterior fabric. So you're using this portion, an exterior fabric, a lining fabric, fusible interfacing for both. And then you're going to want to also use a piece of fusible fleece and fuse it to the wrong side of the exterior piece on top of the fusible woven interfacing. And the reason why you want that fusible fleece is because it gives more structure to the pocket for when you're installing the turn lock. Okay, so that is if you're making a regular pocket, not the organizer pocket. Now we're just going to talk about the pieces for an organizer pocket. So again, same thing. You're cutting the organizer back panel. Ignore this part. You're not doing this part. So you're just cutting this top portion. your one lining fabric, one fusible woven interfacing on the wrong side. Then you're going to need to cut card slots because we have card slots in the organizer pocket. So that's this big piece that you see here. Okay, the dimensions are here. You're also going to need to cut fusible interfacing, fusible woven interfacing for the wrong side. But you'll note that it doesn't go all the way to the edges. And the reason why I don't want any interfacing in the edges is because it's going to make it way too bulky when we're attaching to the zippers. And we don't want bulk there. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time sewing it. It's just going to be way too thick. So that's my card slot piece, and it's interfaced. And in the instructions you'll see, so you're just really centering it all the way around, but there's going to be an uneven amount of space. You see there's a lot more space at the top and the bottom here. And then here along the edges, it's about 1/4 inch of space, which is the seam allowance that we're using when we're attaching this to the organizer zippers on either side. All this, you'll see all of this when I'm doing the assembly later on. Okay, I'm going to keep all these pieces together. Then you want your organizer slip pocket. So there's a pattern piece for this, and you're cutting one lining fabric on the fold. Now please note, this is not a vertical fold line, it's a horizontal. So you're actually folding the fabric like this, and then you're going to put this on the fold, and then you're cutting out just along these sides on the bottom edge. Okay, and you're doing the same thing for the fusible interfacing. Now, if you're using a directional print, like I am, so keep in mind that one side the pattern's upside down, the other side it's right side up. So I'm going to make sure when I'm sewing this on that I'm putting my slip pocket in this way so that my flowers are facing the right side. Then the last pieces you're going to need are for the zipper pocket that's inside the organizer pocket. So you're going to need the one zipper facing piece with interfacing fused on the wrong side, and 2 lining pieces. They also have interfacing on the wrong side. Okay, so that's all you need to cut to make the organizer pocket. I know, just a few hundred pieces, right? Okay, keep those together and put them aside. Now, the rest of the pieces, there's not too many. We have the lining pieces and a few extra exterior pieces. So we have 2 the D-ring connector strap pieces. Measurements are in the cutting chart, so just 2. I'm using cork. Again, one of the bonus of using cork or vinyl, no interfacing, unless it's very, very thin vinyl you want to interface. So if you're using fabric, make sure that you have interfacing. My rectangle ring straps, measurements are in the cutting chart. Again, using cork, so no interfacing. If you're using fabric, make sure you're cutting that interfacing and fusing it to the wrong side. My 2 handle pieces, again, the measurements are in the cutting chart. I'm using cork, so no interfacing, but if you're using fabric, just make sure that you add interfacing as well. In the cutting chart, it does tell you, like if you're using fabric, cut the interfacing as well. But if you're using vinyl or cork, you don't usually need the interfacing. Okay, and then the last pieces that I want to talk about for the exterior is the stabilizer. I'm using foam interfacing. And for this, you're going to only need 3 pieces. So this is where the main body stabilizer piece comes into play. And you'll see again, I'm not cutting this on the fold, even though it says fold. I'm doing the same as when I cut my cork pieces. I just place the interfacing and I draw little marks where it's the center, and then I flip it and then I cut the rest out. And then the bonus is that I already have my center marks. I forget what I called this, just a second. Gusset foam interfacing? No, gusset foam interfacing, sorry. Okay, so the gusset foam interfacing, I do have the measurements listed, but I also have added a little note. So I'm using really wide foam. If you're using, I think it's, I don't know, I don't even know how wide it is. It's very wide. It's at least 45 inches wide. But if you're using, there's some brands, they only come 20 inches wide. You can actually cut the gusset foam interfacing in 2 separate pieces. And I've given you the measurements here. And then you can actually join the pieces with a zigzag stitch to make them the full length that you need. But because I'm using the very wide foam, I don't have to worry about that. I can cut it all as one piece. And then we have our zipper panel. So for the exterior, I'm using cork. I don't need to interface them. My lining pieces, I'm using fabric, and I have interfaced those. So those are the only pieces that you need, and that's the zipper panels for your main zipper closure. You need 2 pieces of Peltex. So if you don't have Peltex, you can use any other brand of sew-in interfacing. It's thin and it's fairly rigid. So there's 2. You're going to need one for the bottom of the bag, so at the bottom of the gusset. And this one is actually, I should have mentioned this when we were talking about the organizer pocket, but I forgot. You need this for, and I'm going to show you on a bag. The piece here that has the card slots, there's actually a piece of Peltex in there, and it just gives the area with the card slots a little bit of extra structure. Otherwise it would be a floppy pocket and your cards would fall out, and you probably wouldn't enjoy that. Okay, set that aside. So the last pieces are for the lining, and this is pretty standard stuff I include in all of my patterns. I always have at least 2 slip pockets and a zipper pocket on the inside of my bags. So I have the interior zipper facing, and it's 1 piece of lining fabric interfaced with fusible woven interfacing. I have the interior zipper pocket lining pieces. The measurements are in the cutting chart, and they're both interfaced as well. My 2 lining pieces. So we're going to use this piece, pattern piece, for 2 different things. We're going to use it for the main lining pieces. Okay, and this is where we're going to sew slip pockets and an interior zipper pocket, and they're both interfaced. And then we're going to use this same pattern piece. We're going to use it to cut the slip pockets. You're going to fold it here at the slip pocket fold line. Then you're going to use this bottom portion to cut 2 slip pocket pieces out of your lining fabric, and you're going to interface them as well, both of them. And the last thing before I forget is your adjustable strap. So in the pattern, I've given you instructions on how to sew it using fabric, but I'm going to use cork, and I'm using a method. I probably won't cover it because I've covered this method many times. You can actually find the method that I'm going to use in my Baronia Bowler bag series, and it's video 5. I'm going to use that method to sew my adjustable strap in cork, but in the video here I'll briefly explain how you would do it if you were using fabric like the pattern calls for. You would have to have a piece of fabric that is 6 inches wide, and you're going to want it at least, well, I do mine 54 inches because that's the default length, width of a piece of full width piece of cork. If you want it longer or shorter, you can go ahead and adjust the length. It's personal preference. And if you're using fabric, just make sure that you interface. So you're going to also cut the interfacing the same size and fuse it to the wrong side. And that's it for the first video. I know it was a lot longer than most of my patterns, but like I said, this is a long bag to make. It has a lot of pieces, and I hope to split it up in manageable assembly sections. So if it feels overwhelming, then the smaller, shorter videos will help break it up and make it a little bit less tedious, I guess. Okay, so that's it for this video, and I'll see you in video 2.